Good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday. It is June 24th, 2021, about 6:31, and we are here in our open session here in North Clackamas School District. We'll start off with Director Bauer saying our native land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Chair Ford. We acknowledge the land on which we sit and which we call the North Clackamas School District. It rests on the traditional and indigenous lands and village sites of the native peoples of the Kalapuya, Chinook, Molalla, and Clackamas. We take this opportunity to offer gratitude for the ability to learn, work, and be a community on this land. And we offer to the original caretakers of this region. We recognize the historical policies of colonization, genocide, relocation, and assimilation that affected Indigenous and Native families, both past and present, and that will affect those in the future, and honor the resilience and the revitalization of our Indigenous and Native communities. We pay our respects to the elders, both past and present, who have been the stewards of this land throughout the generations.
Thank you, Director Bauer. Ask that everyone in the room turn their cameras off, and we will do the flag salute.
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, cameras back on. We'll start with our first thing on the agenda for voting is our minutes. We have June 9th, 2021 grievance hearing minutes. I'll open the floor for a motion.
A motion to approve minutes.
Benaloga, second.
It's been moved by Director Way and second by Director Benaloga. Any discussion on that? Okay. All in opposition, so all that oppose approval, say aye. Okay, seeing none, motion passes unanimously. Next is our June 10th, 2021 regular meeting. I'll open the floor for motion.
Director Benaloga, move board approval of our June 10th, 2021 board meeting.
Director Way, second.
Director Benaloga. Motion and second by Director Way. Any discussion needed? Okay, seeing none. All opposed to approving the minutes, please say aye. Seeing none, June 10th, 2021 regular minutes passed unanimously, approved unanimously. Next is our consent agenda, including employment changes, alternative placement for 2021 through 2022, confidential non-represented group memo of understanding, North Clackamas Administrators Association 2021 through 2023 agreement, North Clackamas Education Association 2021 through 2023 agreement, and transportation project right-of-way dedication and property easement. Open the floor for a motion.
Bauer, move approval of the employment changes, the alternative placements 2021-22, confidential non-represented group memo of understanding, the North Clackamas Administrators Association, the NCAA 2021-23 agreement, the North Clackamas Education Association, the NCEA 2021-23 agreement, and the transportation project right-of-way dedications and property easements.
Director Perez, I second.
Properly moved by Director Way and second by Director Perez. I'm sorry, Director Bauer. Motion by Director Bauer, second by Director Perez. Any discussion needed? Seeing none, all those who oppose the approval of consent agenda, please say aye. Okay, seeing none, consent agenda is approved unanimously. Next on our agenda is community request. At this time, we don't have any community requests. So the next thing on our agenda is our board reports. And also I will remind all board members that this is also the time for you to present your interest in being chair or vice chair for 2021 through 2022 school year. I will start with Director Benaloga.
Thank you, Chair. For my board reports, I'd like to report attending several graduations. I was able to go to Rex Putnam, Milwaukee, and New Urban High School graduations in person. Really wonderful to see the success of our young people and the success of our district and really helping our kids get past that finish line. It was great celebrations. I appreciate that. I also watched the Clackamas Middle College virtual graduation with one of their graduates, and it was wonderful to see that as well. They always have a very personal type graduation with a small class, so it's very nice to see. And then I was also able to attend Karen Powers, our representative that represents part of Milwaukee and Selwood. I was able to attend her constituent coffee about a week and a half ago and was able to get a question in to talk about school funding, to talk about the letter that the representatives had sent to the governor advocating for 9.6 instead of the 9.3. So I was able to have a little bit of a conversation with her about that, and it was much appreciated. Is this, Chair, I do have a question. Is this where we bring up potential? Okay, conflict of interest? No? Okay, all right. Okay, and that's all for me today. Thank you.
This is where you present interest in chair or vice chair if you so wish. Okay, Director Perez.
Actually, I was just on the eve of this heat wave. Seems like it's been one thing after another these last, I don't know, 15 to 16 months. I just want to again just say thank you to all the staff and all the administrators and everyone in our district, staff, teachers, administrators, for all your hard work and tremendous, incredible resiliency in light of wildfires, ice storms, pandemic, now a heat wave, and you continue to go above and beyond for our students to make sure that that we meet the mission or we meet our purpose of ensuring that they're inspired and students inspired and empowered to strengthen the quality of life in our local and global communities. I can't say enough thank you for and how proud I am of our entire school district. And excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat, but thank you so much. And Chair Ford, at this time, no interest in chair or vice chair. Thank you.
And I believe Director Perez attended a graduation.
Yes, attended the Clackamas High School graduation. That's to see those students, their smiles. That's what it's all about. I just the joy in the moment. They worked so hard to get to that point. That's what it's all about. It was awesome. And I was glad to be a part of that and witness that. Thank you, Chair Ford.
Director Way.
Thank you, Chair Ford. Just two things that I can report on. One, I attended a retirement party for someone by the name of Superintendent Matt Utterback, and I know that there were several board members who were also present, and it was just great to really send off our superintendent with just high praises and celebrations, and so just really enjoyed just his leadership in our district. So thank you again, Matt. So it was definitely a bittersweet moment. And then secondly, I attended a Death of Racism event. This was the second annual event. It was held at Clackamas High School. Our very own Libra Ford was one of the organizer speakers there, as well as other students who were also speaking, and our madres, who I know a lot of us also work with, were also there. So it was just great to see the community coming together to really continue talking about racism and ways it shows up, and really coming together to address it and offer solutions. So those are the things that I have. And I also do not have an interest in the chair or vice chair roles for next year.
Director Schradel.
Good evening. I attended the policy meeting. We've had one to go over some of the stuff the board asked us to look at. Besides that, I did stop by the school district at 2:15 today. There was a parking lot event, and it was nice to see people in person. So I'm sorry I'm not there in person tonight. And when you say interest, I don't have an interest in chair, vice chair. I do have an interest that I think it would be best to repeat the current leadership to benefit the changing over from superintendent to superintendent. So thank you.
Director Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Ford. I also took part in some policy meeting and attended the new urban graduation. And I was so proud of the 39 graduates who showed just great determination and fortitude while facing many life changes. And I'm grateful for the choice that we have for students, or that we have this choice. It shows that we believe in every student matters. Other community events, RAU Collaboration, they had one in person out in their courtyard, and that was great to see some real people, some real faces, not just on Zoom. And then the PCLA had 2 or 3 steering committee meetings, and they are really looking at clearing and working on their bylaws and their processes. And I think this is real hopeful, and having some real great conversations to move forward. They want to include an equity statement and just do some good work. We're following as many of the future education bills as possible. And then I also participated and supported the community event Death to Racism, and agree with everything that our board member Way said about that. Hearing the hopes and the dreams of our students and our staff and our community, but especially the students, on what their lives would be like without racism in their life. And I cannot pass up this opportunity to thank our superintendent once more for recognizing his amazing leadership. And we were so grateful to have him for 32 years in our district. That means so much. I want to wish him the best. He has a lot to be proud of. And if anyone has not heard his farewell address on Facebook, please go listen to that. It's a very important message, and it's set the tone of what the good work that he's done here. We have a lot more to do, but together, as he said, we can do that. And there's a lot of great messages in that. I like that he said we need to continue to work together with patience, understanding, and grace. So he leaves us with a great message. So thank you for your 32 years of service, Superintendent Utterback. We are so grateful.
Okay. Is he? Oh, I see his phone. Okay. Director McVeigh, I see your phone. There you go.
Good evening. Can you hear me? I'm in the car.
Yep, can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chair Ford. Board reports. I also was able to attend Matt's retirement celebration, and how fun it was to see the community and retirees, and of course, all of the pictures of when Matt was a 12-year-old, but actually his first year teaching. He just looked 12. I'm sad to inform everyone that I wasn't able to attend the graduations. First time in 8 years. I haven't been able to attend any in-person graduation, and I'm glad we had a lot of board members able to represent and partake in those festivities. And at this time, I want to say that I am not interested in vice chair or chair, and I welcome those that are. More power to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Director McVeigh. Okay, and I'll summarize by saying I also had the great pleasure of attending superintendent's party or gathering, and that was awesome to see the pictures, as Director McVeigh said, and his message on Facebook is wonderful. I think the overall closeout of your superintendency, Matt, is pretty darn cool, not just for adults to see how graceful someone can end a career, but for kids. So, you know, you're an educator at heart, so you ended your career with just another lesson. So thank you for that. I was able to attend 3 graduations, and that was at Clackamas, Milwaukee, and New Urban. My first time, because the first time when I came on the board, I couldn't do it that first year, and then last year we didn't have them in person, and this year was my first time. So super cool to see the energy there, to see parents there, and if anyone from CWA is online, they already know my energy at graduation. So it was all matched at all these events. So I loved it. It was super cool to see people celebrating their kids. That's what we're supposed to be doing. It's a great milestone in their life, and they have many more to achieve, but this is a big one. And then I also sit on the Education Recovery Committee for the governor's office. So we're continuing to talk about what the future of education will look like now that we've learned so much during COVID. How do we incorporate those things to give a more relevant and a more holistic education for kids and families to experience education differently? Super excited about the work that we're doing there with some community leaders across the state. And last but not least, I'm interested in leadership here on the board level, chair or vice chair, whatever the other board members see fit. And that is my report. Thank you all for your reports. Way to do the work and continue to move us forward. Next thing, I'm sorry, Chair Bauer. I'm co-chair, Vice Chair Bauer.
I didn't address that last point, and I'm interested to serve if needed as vice chair.
Cool. Thank you all. Next thing on our agenda is our student social emotional supports. It's a presentation. Miss Shelley, are you there? I see you. There you go.
I am here. Thank you, Chair Ford, and thank you, directors, for having us this evening. What an opportunity to be able to share some joy with you tonight. I would like to introduce our Director of Social Services, Mr. Michael Rawls, who is going to be taking the lead on tonight's presentation, and I'll be joining in occasionally. But at this point, I would like to turn it over to Michael.
All right. Hello. I'm going to share my screen and make sure it works. All right. Can I get some confirmation that you can see the screen?
You are good.
Thank you so much. Well, first I'd like to say congratulations to our board members who were reelected and are returning. I think that's fantastic. So if I may say that. I remember March 13th last year, not this past March 13th, but the one before. So as you remember, the 12th was Thursday, and the board unanimously, I think, approved the Student Investment Act plan, which was very exciting. And on March 13th, in my recollection, the world shut down. And we went from a very high to a very low. And one of the first thing that Matt called and asked was that we adapt the food pantry to what we were getting into. And so we met with the family support team to adapt the food pantry to COVID protocols. In the beginning, we wore gloves, no masks. We were doing the best we could and with what we knew at that time. And I share that because that's just an example of how things changed. And, you know, some things that felt obvious became wrong, not proper protocol, and other things that we weren't thinking about became the proper protocol. As the year progressed, we delivered food to the curb. You couldn't help but notice the cars. We've always had a core value of not judging and not questioning, and we teach that in the food pantry and in our trainings with the volunteers and the staff. We met family after family, some in older cars, some in luxury cars. All of them were reaching out, humbled by their situation and needing to ask for help. One parent hugged a staff member, sharing that we had saved her family's Christmas. Tonight, we're going to give you an update on social services and review the many ways our district took care of families this year.
A number of years ago, I had a very constructive and memorable conversation / brainstorm with a colleague. I think you know him. His name's Joe Crum. Joe oversaw the Family Support Center at that time, the Family Support Center at Wichita, and we began a brainstorm to dream what could be. What could services, social services look like in the district that lift up our students and families? How can we grow programs that better meet the social needs through dignity and care? That same dignity and care that Michael just spoke about as a core value that still remains today. We talked about this not in pieces, but a holistic approach. And that was the start of creating the Social Services Department and the creation of the role that Michael has built, cultivated, and elevated over time. On the screen right here, I'd like to introduce you to a visual. It's a mental model for the social services here in North Clackamas School District. And it's in North Clackamas where we've had this approach to student health and well-being as a system. You'll see that there are the 8 areas. While each of these 8 areas is a focus or a program on its own, they coexist together in an ecosystem of care. The individual pieces and programs are interconnected, and this approach allows us to see and service students and families in a more holistic and student and family-centered way. Michael?
And school is one component of a larger system. We all can understand that there are social determinants of health that impact us. Education is just one important aspect to health when we look at the whole child. Education doesn't exist in a silo. And you see here in this model of social determinants of health, education access to quality is just one of these 5 components. Each of these areas are interrelated and they support the quality of the other areas. In the fall, we created this flyer. I hope it looks familiar to you. It's been plastered. Hopefully, my goal is to plaster it everywhere. And my hope was that not one person, parent, student, staff member could say, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. So I think we were pretty successful. The intent of this was to connect families directly to resources. It took some work working with all of the partners to make sure that they had systems set up to connect directly with families. And all of our partners were great in adapting to be able to do that and adapting to a virtual world. We created this flyer to eliminate barriers to resources so that parents could triage themselves and their situations and figure out what resources were best for their child. Fortunately, we had many resource partnerships developed before COVID impacted us. When COVID impacted schools and in our nation, in our world, Many school districts were scrambling to put resources in place and build partnerships that we already had in place. So that really put us ahead of the curve to be able to set up a system of care for our students even during COVID. This process of this flyer helped to ensure that all families were aware of all resources. One of our biggest advocates during this last year have been our school counselors. They've been key staff in supporting families. In the summer, so a year ago almost from today, maybe 2 weeks from now, we created a counseling mental health CDL blueprint that we were required to do for Oregon Department of Education. And our counselors and myself created this and submitted to our district to be submitted to ODE. ODE also asked us to participate in creating the statewide plan for comprehensive school counseling guidance for statewide. Our elementary and middle school counselors met every 2 weeks all year, supporting each other for how to adapt with the many changes that were happening all year long. There were times when 1 week, the guidance that I gave was completely inaccurate 2 weeks later. In fact, in one meeting, one of the counselors said, "Oh, I actually just got an email forwarded from my principal that says the exact opposite of what you just said," which was a great example for me to share with them that that's how quickly things are changing, and we just have to, be able to adapt to that and continue to adapt. The counselors figured out how to virtually meet individually with students, and with students working through confidentiality and technology logistics. They also figured out how to meet virtually with groups of students. They taught lessons in child protection, conflict management, and college and career. Elementary and middle school counselors also created a new college and career program, and they taught lessons connected to college and career. The elementary counselors created a virtual college fair. They interviewed and recorded interviews of many people in many different careers, so students could go and tap which one they'd like to be interviewed. And they were from helicopter pilots to firefighters to all kinds of occupations. And that is something that we've never done before. In fact, our elementary schools have not, as far as I've known, had a district-wide plan for addressing college and career. And I'd say what we did this year was 100 times more than what we've done in the past, and was just a tremendous growth on their part, and they worked really hard. The middle school counselors implemented the school-wide Naviance program, which is already used in the high school. So the year before, we got permission to expand to the elementary school, and we built a plan, and every single student in middle school, was had experienced 4 lessons from the middle school counselors. It wasn't really just from the counselors either. This was implementing a whole program and system infrastructure for addressing college and career in the school. And it pulled in teachers, they trained teachers. And so these lessons were being taught by teachers in classrooms and weren't all on the counselor's shoulders, but the counselors were directing and guiding it. And they also reported child abuse, suicide interventions, and threat assessments, because those still happened during COVID. Here's an example of a website, a webpage of a counselor. It's actually from Putnam High School that she created for her students. You can see that this is a very trauma-informed approach. And I share this with you just as an example. Many of our counselors created a webpage like this. And the webpage, this is actually one step into her webpage. And this is the calming room that she has on her webpage. And you can select here anything you would like. And then also you see, if your student needs mental or physical health services, they can click there and get right to that flyer, or right to those services. Or if they need food, they can also get right to those resources. One of the exciting things that we are adding are school social workers. This is a new program for North Clackamas School District. It's something that I have advocated for the last 12 years. And I'm just super excited that we're able to do this. We were postponed for a year because of COVID and the SIA funding in that. And but we are ready to roll. I've hired 4 school social workers. They have an average 7 years of experience. All will be certified, by the TSBC. And one of our new hires grew up through our North Clackamas system. She went to several of our schools, K through 12. We hope to hire classified family advocates in this program in the future. The 4 that we've hired are certified. We hope to expand and add family advocates. And that was at the suggestion of Kathy and Libra, both of you directors, when we presented this over a year ago. And so I think that's still in the plan for the next phase, and I'm hoping that we're able to add that. Mental health the needs for mental health has been huge. We have been contracting with 4 different organizations before COVID happened. And when COVID happened, we've contracted with one of our partners, Western Psychological and Counseling, who has changed their name to LifeStance. So you'll see that name later in this presentation. But we contracted with them to help bridge the gaps that families have. There are all kinds of reasons for need. 5 of them, or some of them, are listed here. But really, this list is much longer than what this is, and it's almost case by case. I will say virtual learning actually opened up this resource for more students, and we had more students access mental health supports than we've had in the past. All of our partners were able to transition to a virtual platform, and they actually transitioned to that more quickly than we were able to. Here's some testimonials from some clinicians. Mental health support helped students process the trauma of COVID so they could focus on school. It enabled students to continue services that addressed suicidal ideation, social isolation, a decline in school performance, relationships with family or friends, the impacts of this year's civil rights movement, and general anxiety. The program manager shared that these funds removed barriers to access to mental health for our families. We also continued our substance use intervention program. This program, believe it or not, self-medication using substances didn't stop during COVID. Overall, clinicians worked 3,692 hours of direct service supporting students. I'd like to point out a few of the ways that therapists worked with families. They provided evaluations and therapy. They led therapeutic groups. They led individual therapy. They presented to health classes, and they consulted with school staff at staff meetings and with the school counselors. You're all aware of our food pantry, but some things I'd like to share with you too. We have the number of people, the individuals served here. Over 25,000 individuals were served from our food pantry. 118 days is how many days our food pantry has been open. And our food pantry, I pointed out, as we were in comprehensive distance learning and virtual, and if you think about it, there was a time when coming into a school building was just something we were not doing. Nobody was coming into any of our buildings. But at the food pantry, we've been in a hybrid model from the very start. So going back to March 13th, we were in a hybrid model the whole time, meeting families in person, following COVID safety distance protocols and that, but we were talking with families, we were having that personal interaction with families, and that has never changed. So when the school district transferred into a hybrid model, I shared with family support team, you guys are already there. You've been doing this. This is the model you've been in all year long. We served over 5,800 households, and the pounds of food donated from the community was over 175,000 pounds. From the Oregon Food Bank, it was over 192,000 pounds, which I share this with you. I know these are numbers I'm throwing out, but the total is over 360,000 pounds of food that have gone in by hand to the food pantry and out by hand, 1 pound at a time, to families, to feed our families in our communities.
Michael, if I could just add a little bit in talking about our Family Support Center staff and the heroic nature of how they continue to serve during the pandemic. Michael did an amazing job of making sure that one of the core values, going back to that care and dignity, that we're serving families in the language they prefer. And that's a core value. You saw that with the poster that Michael showed right at the beginning that is translated into our district's languages. And so are the services at the Family Support Center, including how families can access food, coming up to the line, calling the phone number, letting folks know in their preferred language what their needs are so they could be met. You saw the carts in that picture in the last slide. So a touchless service system meeting COVID protocols where families could get the services provided that they requested in the language language that they preferred. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Shelley. We also created a housing and utility assistance program. There has been a moratorium, but families still have been in danger of losing their homes for different reasons. We use these funds as a last resort and directed families to other resources, trying to use other resources and programs in our area first. So we still had those funds to help those same families when those other funds ran out. We helped 92 families, helped be able to stay where they lived and not have to move. And you can see the dollar amount we awarded, and we've also raised more than that. And so we still have that as we move forward. Our McKinney-Vento students, this year we had over 250 homeless youth, and 68 of them were unaccompanied youth. That number is smaller, it's a bit lower than what we've had in the past, but in actuality, it's probably much higher. The reporting was impacted by a couple things. The free and reduced lunch was available for all students. And for most of the year, free and reduced lunch looked very different, obviously, too. So our numbers in general were very different. And that impacted our numbers for McKinney-Vento qualifying youth drastically. The other thing was virtual learning. It eliminated the need for busing students to schools. And that's one of the main services we provide and the main needs. And so that wasn't a need until we came back to school in person for the first time in about March. Another thing we did is we immediately had the question of, we have some kids that we don't know where they are. How can we get them back to school? And so we implemented a program called the Care and Connect Outreach Teams. They're check-in visits. We were careful not to use the term home visit, not to avoid inferring that staff would go into the homes, because that would not be following good safety protocols with COVID. And so we trained staff and we helped staff know how to do this, and they went out in teams to find where students were and really to find out, what is preventing them from re-engaging with school. And many times we found that it could have been they struggled with getting the Chromebook. There were families that said, we tried to get the Chromebook, we called the number, but we got embarrassed, and we were 3 weeks behind, so we just kind of let it go. And they were too embarrassed to keep pursuing and advocating for themselves to get the Chromebook. And so that was an easy fix for us. There were other issues and concerns with food and with housing and other things, but we could connect them to resources that we had. And so that helped us to get them re-engaged with school. Another, as you know, this has been one of my passions, and I have several passions in social services, but the school-based health centers were open in person and virtually this whole last year. They saw students in person because some medical conditions obviously just have to be helped in person. And so, but they also moved to a virtual platform, again, before we were even able to as a school. They did that very quickly. One of the things that they were able to do is this last spring, hundreds of students were vaccinated at the Putnam High School School-Based Health Center. Also, Clackamas Mall had a vaccination clinic that was focused on just North Clackamas and Gladstone communities, and many of our students volunteered there.
Our Milwaukee High School Student-Based Health Center also had vaccination clinics. So between the two schools and also supporting New Urban High School, and then the feeder middle schools, once we were able to go to students 12 years and older, it was quite an amazing opportunity to see students come together and support one another and encourage one another in getting the vaccine, and also celebrating getting vaccinated with children and families doing that together. It was pretty awesome to watch that happen. And that partnership with our school-based health centers really, really was it was very special. It was very special to see the generosity. One of the exciting things that came out of that as a result of Michael building those bridges between the two student-based health center organizations and the county was a continuous effort. And then also with our Milwaukee site saying that as they move forward, our vaccines for students will become a part of their regular care program. That's so exciting as that removes additional barriers for students and families. I know there have been questions about student-based health centers in the past, and one of the easiest ways for us to really conceptualize and think about our student-based health centers is well child visits. well child visits for your student while they're at school so they don't have to leave school or miss school in order to have a regular checkup. There's also access to dental care and mental health supports as well. So those wraparound services are available. It is such an exciting program, and we're thrilled that it's going to be expanding to all 4 of our larger high schools.
Thank you, Shelley. I want to give you a quick summary of some of the ways that we supported students this year in social services in that world. We have full-time school counselors in every school. We have mental health therapists that are available to every single student in our school district. We have primary care available to every single student in our school district. We have a dental program that educated students, that taught lessons or sent out lessons to teachers and to students. And so we have dental, we can connect students to dental services, for every single student. Our engagement specialists and other staff were finding students who didn't show up to school and helping them to reconnect to schools. Our housing utility funds were available to all families. Our food pantry was accessible for every single family. And in the future, school social workers will help families connect to schools as well. So I want to walk you through time just here quickly, and I want to give you a view of 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, and I love to use Maslow's hierarchy. In 2008 was the first time that I presented to the school board, and I talked about Maslow's hierarchy of our needs, and I think I presented Maslow's hierarchy probably every single time I presented to the board. I went back and looked, and I think it looks like I presented to the board. This might be the 10th time, or I presented to the board at least 10 times. Tonight will be the last, unfortunately, but it's my decision. I've talked about removing barriers for kids so they could access an education. That if we took care of kids too, we could do a better job of educating them. A decade ago, here are the programs that we had in place. But over the past decade, the need for supporting students with social services has become more important. And you as a school board, you current members and members before you have always been supportive of these services. So I want to show you now what we have in place. So you can see the differences, the programs in red. So these are just words or phrases, but behind each of these, we're talking is a huge program. Many of them involve multiple staff members or multiple organizations. And this gives you an idea of the system of care that we have built as a school district for our students. We have responded by creating these additional programs. Many of these are passions of mine, as you know: primary care, oral health, mental health, food insecurity. But this system of care that we have developed for kids is what every school district in the country is working to develop. Many districts have pieces of our program, but few have it all. I frequently receive calls from other districts who want to use parts of our program as models to develop that part of program in their school district. I would like to encourage you to continue to support this gem of a program of system of care that we have in our school district. I also want to go back to this timeline. I've shared this timeline with you once before, but I think it's worth looking at again. Over the years, our school board has prioritized the whole child and understood the interconnectedness of health and education. I want to thank you for your support for all of these programs, for prioritizing taking care of kids in the most inventive, systematized, and sustainable ways. I want to thank you for supporting me in the last 15 years. As I've worked to champion the need for social services. I'd like to also say thank you to Matt Atterback and Shelley Reggiani and Joe Crum. And I thank you for your patience with me. I'd like to read this quote. There's no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. This quote speaks to me because it gets to the heart of our work. We approach social services and the health and well-being of students as a core function of our educational model. Our students can excel when the structures and supports are in place to address the social factors that impede their reaching their full potential. All right, I was sure I was not going to become a blubbering idiot tonight, and I have never done that. So I guess after 22 years in our school district and 33 years in education, one time is probably okay. So thank you.
It's more than okay. It's absolutely received, and you've earned this moment. So thank you. Comments and questions from our board members. I know can you stop sharing for us so I can see if Tori, is Tori still on the phone? Okay. Director Schradel, do you have any comments or questions?
I just want to say good to see you and thank you for the presentation.
Director Way?
It was a very moving presentation, and Michael, thank you just so much for your dedication and your work and your leadership. I still have friends who went through our K through 12 education system, and you were some of their counselors, and you've saved some of their lives. So thank you for again being who you are and showing your commitment to all of our students. I just have two questions. The first question is, so with COVID, everything moved to virtual. And I was wondering if we are going to continue that pathway for students who might be more comfortable meeting with psychologists or counselors more in a virtual setting than in person. So that was my second question. And the second question is, I again love the idea of the partnership of the vaccine clinics and the school-based health centers and just working so seamlessly so that students who wish to be vaccinated can have that opportunity. And are there plans as we reopen into the fall for some of those vaccine clinics to continue? So those are my two questions that I had.
Yeah, those are great questions, Kathy. So first, the virtual, both there's a lot behind both of your questions. So the first one is insurance. There are a lot of things that regulate the virtual teletherapy or primary care, and insurance companies' reimbursable fees are a part of that. But also in the medical world, meeting virtually with patients for primary care was not highly accepted before COVID hit. And when COVID came along nationwide, that changed. It wasn't super quick. It wasn't overnight, and there were huge systems and policies that had to be changed as quickly as possible in order to even allow them to be able to do that. I would say that it is dependent on those systems more than anything. Our partners are more than willing to continue that. It's been a fantastic way to connect with kids and families, and will obviously continue to be a fantastic way to do that, but it'll be dependent on those systems. And the other question you had was, I did remember, now I forgot.
Just the vaccination clinics, right, and continuing those partnerships with
the vaccination clinics. The vaccine, I'll use the Pfizer vaccine, for instance, comes in very large quantities. And so I'll just make up some numbers, but at Putnam, if we were going to be able to vaccinate 25 students on a day, they get a huge bundle. They might get 1,000 vaccines in one bundle. And so the numbers are very different. And so they have to either partner with another clinic that's happening at that same time. Once they unseal things or take them out of the freezer at that certain temperature, they have a short lifespan. And so it's really dependent on those logistics. I think, again, it's something that our partners would love to do. The details are what are the difficult things to figure out, basically, with the vaccine specifically. So, okay. Yeah, I'd say both our partners are willing, all in, to work on both of those and continue both of those. It has more to do with things that are out of their control.
Okay, thank you. And thank you again for the great presentation and for your many years of service in our district.
Director Benaloga.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Michael. I always remember meeting you at Milwaukee High School many years ago, and having the student-based health centers was definitely something that was it was a vision of yours, and it was and then you created a system of people around you that also had that same vision. And I think that we have the supports and the programs in place really because of all of your work from the very beginning and your passion for taking care of our whole child. So we appreciate all of that work. Thank you, Director Way, for asking about continuing those virtual services. That was actually my one question. I think that if we've seen an increase in the amount of students that are willing to reach out for those services, I think that is so important. And I just want to once again just say what an amazing group of wraparound services that we have that your team and the district has created. I know much with the support of Superintendent Utterback. It's been very important that we support our whole family and the whole child. And I have often believed, and I really feel that our schools need to be the heart of our community, and our school district needs to be the heart of our community. And I think that by having these services and programs, we have just then again become the heart of the community in so many more ways than I think we even envisioned 15, 20 years ago. So thank you so much for all of your work and your continued service. And we just appreciate it very much.
Director Perez.
Yeah, thank you. I want to say thank you to Michael and Shelley for this wonderful presentation. And, I was sitting here, I know a few years ago, I was walking through the building here, and I happened to walk by your office, Michael. And I remember you had the candy dish. I'm always drawn to candy. And I came in, I ended up talking to you, but I remember seeing you had all those charts, some of the charts that were on display in the presentation, they were on your wall. And I remember sitting there thinking, this is a man that cares, and he cares for his students. You can see it right here on his wall. I'm looking now, I'm saddened because I don't see all those charts on your wall now back there. I'm feeling some sadness. You have done so much. Just look at the 10 years that you just presented, what we have now compared to 10 years ago. So the impact you've had on the students and so many in this community, it's real. Thank you so much. And I do have two questions. One question, first question is the Care and Connection Outreach Team. We have all these services now after 10 years. We have engagement specialists, community liaisons, et cetera, food pantry. We have all of these different things. I'm kind of fascinated by the outreach team because I think that is an important piece to get our folks out there with our families and students, getting them out there to connect when, to find out what's going on or why a student isn't showing up at school or why. Are we continuing that, and how does that work? Can you give me an example of how that works, where someone says, okay, let's go check on this family? I'm just curious.
Yeah, did you have two questions, or is that it?
Oh, that was two in one, huh?
Oh, good. Okay. I was writing them down, so I would have to make sure I answer both. The Care and Connect team, yeah, everything's in place to continue that, and there's no reason why that can't continue. I think that we even have more resources as we move forward. We have engagement specialists, and they did a lot of work on that this year. They carried a lot of that load. We also have, as I mentioned, 4 school social workers, and that's really the school social worker world to doing that home outreach. And then our school counselors have also done that home outreach, and even many of our administrators have done that home outreach over the years. So those different staff members are still going to be interested in understanding why students are not attending school and if there's something that we can do to help them. The systems, the training, Tammy O'Neill and I shared training K through 12 staff members, and that training, it's a PowerPoint slide and we have a quiz. And so that process is all in place and not going away. I see no reason that can't continue. I probably would say that we've been doing that before. We just didn't do it having a district-wide training program and a system and a process to do that was consistent across the district. So it's something we've done before. It's something that we will continue to do.
Thank you. And then one more quick question for you, Michael. You have outreach teams, counselors, social workers, mental health, McKinney-Vento, FSC, school-based health centers, substance use, SUD. You have all these. So we have 33 or 32 schools in our district. I can't remember, give or take 32, 33, one plus or one. How often do the folks from all these different areas, how often do they meet to kind of share resources and from all our schools, from all these different areas?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's been more informal, and it hasn't been everyone meeting at once. There's some barriers, but honestly, that was a goal that I had for this year before COVID hit. I've been talking to other people from other outside organizations who have experienced that before, facilitated that. And with COVID, it was something that was impossible to do, just impossible due to people's schedules. Therapists have clients throughout the day, primary care staff need to be available for students to come in, but it's something I think that would be extremely valuable, and we should be able to pull off and have everyone attend, even if it was one time a year. That would really be magical to get them in the same room together and let them start to network. So I will leave that to Joe Bridgman and to Shay and leave that in their capable hands. And I know that they are completely and super supportive of this work continuing and expanding.
Thank you, Michael. I'm going to miss you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Perez. Just piggyback on what Director Perez was just saying for the future. Coordinated access is what it's called, what Director Perez was talking about. There's some great practices happening in the housing world and the domestic violence world that you may want to pass on for someone to look at. All right, Director Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Ford. Thank you for the great report, comprehensive, dignity and care, holistic, all of those things. And your passion, both of you, showed through. You both know our community so well, and you know our students so well, and I've observed both of you. But personally, Michael, you were my daughter's counselor way back at Clackamas and helped her through a couple rough times. But then I saw you go on, and I watched, even when you were at Clackamas, you started programs. You started Parent Institute. You got the PTA involved to pay for speakers. You got involved in the dental program. You had a health van. Then you went to Milwaukee, the student-based health centers, and you always made the case, but you had the data to show that and show the need. So, but you have the heart. And so I thank you for your service. I thank you for your care and the programs that you've built and the staff. It's amazing. So thank you so much for that. You hit on my one question is, and thank you, board members, for your great comments and your questions. That, you know, the virtual worked well. I was thinking of that same question, but now that students come back and you have had training, will there be training to help encourage those who need help or identify? The teachers and the staff will be looking for those students.
Yeah, just to be clear, Mitzi, and your question is, will there be training for teachers?
Yeah, for teachers and staff to help encourage and identify those students that need help. Sometimes, you know, they don't speak up or speak out or seek help.
Right. I think that, I mean, I'd say across the board, it's what our providers and our counselors and social workers and our people and our teachers, I'd say, it's what people that care about kids do. They bring those kids forward, and they know who the go-to people are in their schools to help, but as a more systematized kind of way, or across the school district in a consistent way. I think we're right there to be able to do that. COVID has set us back in some ways. It's also kind of helped us kind of push forward in other ways. And so I think we're really primed to make that happen. And, you know, again, I think that's not going to be a real heavy lift for us necessarily. And I think we're very primed for that work to just increase and improve.
Thank you so much. And Yeah, we are going to miss you.
Well, and this has been done with many, I mean, the work I have done, sorry, but has been accomplished from the support of many, many people and the hard work of many, many people. So I was not meaning tonight to be about me. So we can talk about Matt again if you would like, but it's your agenda.
Well, we appreciate you, and I know that that is definitely the social worker in your heart, to not have it be about you, but this moment is about you because you've done really good work. And even if there's a team, all team players have moments to be recognized, and this is yours, and we really appreciate you. And Josh Shipp once said that every kid is only one caring adult away from a success story. You have been that caring adult for many, many children. Good job, man. That's a great way to end a career and a great way to walk into your next chapter. Really good stuff. Good karma is coming your way. But Director Bauer clearly is our historian. She's watched everything, and now she just recited like your entire career. I was like, where'd you get that from? Like, it's pretty cool stuff. So thank you for your work. Thank you guys for your presentation. We appreciate all of you guys, and I can't wait to see what you do in your next chapter.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your words too, Libra.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we got our next agenda item, which is our policy revisions, and Miss Cindy Detchen is here to give us a presentation. I see you.
There I am. Thank you. Good evening, board. Tonight we have two policies that we're bringing forward as a discussion item only. We are not seeking action on these two policy changes or revisions this evening. These have gone through the typical process, have gone through the policy committee, so some of this is familiar to those members on that committee. The first policy is IIBGA, Electronic Communication Systems. And this one is coming to you as a result of some changes in language through E-rate and federal programming. This is not any change in practice. In fact, it better matches what our current practice is, but it does meet all of the new language requirements and some helpful updates to things like the internet or the World Wide Web that was referenced in previous policies. So it does bring some things into a little bit more common and updated times. So again, no changes in practice there, but updated language. The second one is INDB, flag displays and salutes. And the only change here is a change in practice. And this is to accommodate a change in federal regulation that requires the flying of the POW and MIA, prisoners of war and missing in action flag at schools that were built after January 1, 2018. And we do have some of those as a result of our 2016 capital construction bond. And so we will be adding those to flagpoles at Beatrice Morrow Kennedy Elementary School, Milwaukee High School, because we did replace the building and there's a new building, and New Urban High School is a replacement building as well. Those are the only three that qualify under this current law. And so I'm here to address any questions. Derek Brown is also available should you have any questions regarding the electronic communication system policy.
Anyone have any questions? Okay, seeing none, except that I don't know why we wouldn't keep the World Wide Web on there. I mean, it's just such a great 3 words to say.
Absolutely. These
So
will come back
happy.
to you at the next meeting then for action.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is organization resolution. This is an action item. Board. Ms. Galen, are you ready?
I am ready. Good to see you all tonight. The first resolution that I have before you is a required designation and authorizations and appointments that is an annual resolution agenda item required to make the needed designations, authorizations, and appointments, excuse me, The only changes from prior years is that we will be replacing Superintendent Utterback with Superintendent Shay James. But all of the other designations stay the same.
I'll open the floor for a motion.
This is Director Wei. Motion to approve the organizational resolution for 2020-2021. Oh, I'm sorry, I have the wrong year. But in our board book, it says that. So for 2021 to 2022.
Properly moved. Do I have a second?
Director Perez, I'll second.
Director Perez, second. Any discussion or comments needed? Someone needs to mute. Okay, seeing none. All opposed to passing this motion, say aye. Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. Okay, next thing on our agenda is appropriation transfers. This also is an action item. Still up, Ms. Galen.
Thank you. So every year we set a budget and we set appropriation levels. And sometimes we fall outside of those appropriation levels for various reasons. In our trust and agency fund, we need to move appropriations between the instruction function and the enterprise and community services function to the tune of $5,000. This isn't a major adjustment, but we fell just outside of what we had anticipated we would need in each of those categories. And so I'm asking for the resolution to be approved to move those appropriation levels.
Open the floor for a motion.
Okay. Director Perez, approve the superintendent's recommendation for the approval of resolution for appropriations transfer of $5,000 from instruction to enterprise and community service in the 2020-2021 adopted trust and agency fund budget to meet budgeting requirements.
Excellent. Motion on the table.
Director Shadle, second.
Been properly moved by Director Perez, second by Director Stradle. Any discussion needed? Seeing none, all opposed to this motion passing, say aye. Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Last but not least is authorization to purchase library books. This is an action item. Mr. Ron Stewart, and it's only $7.40. Man, you look nice. I feel underdressed. Oh man, that's a great looking suit there.
My boss's last board meeting. I'm sitting in a very nice office and coming to you to ask the board to grant advance authorization to the superintendent to enter into contracts to purchase library books for not to exceed amount of $300,000.
What a way to end. Floor is open for a motion.
Bauer, I move to grant advanced authorization to the superintendent to enter into contracts to purchase library books from Follett School Solution via a One Government Procurement Alliance cooperative contract. The amount of the purchases is a not to exceed $300,000.
Director Benaloga, second.
Properly moved by Director Bauer, second by Director Benaloga. Any discussion needed? Okay, seeing none, all opposed of approving this motion, say aye. Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, guys. Well, it is now 7:43. This is Superintendent Utterback's official last board meeting. Thank you for being here. I know you're like ants in your pants. I should just hold us for another 10 minutes. No, I was just joking. Thank you, guys. Thank everyone for your attendance and for being here. We appreciate you all. Thank you, Superintendent Utterback. And we look forward to working with our new superintendent, Dr. Shay James. Good evening, everyone. Meeting adjourned 7:42.
Good night, everybody.